Hi everyone, Joanne here. Thanks so much for listening. I've got a great episode for you today, something that I am looking forward to talking about because it's something that I have done and I'm sure you will be doing as well if you are actually just listening to this. And it's all about taking a risk. So you're self-employed, it's fair to assume that you've got a certain degree of fearlessness in you, even if you don't feel like that you do. You definitely do. I mean, I can be, honestly, the most sensible, careful person ever when it comes to my personal life and my family. Like, I like everything planned out. I like to know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. Spontaneity is not my strong point. Admittedly, I am a planner. In fact, I had an old boyfriend once who actually broke up with me because he said I was too organised. I mean, whatever, that's just who I am. I've got a stupid amount of notebooks. It's got everything in them, all my musings, from meal plans to my plans to take over the world. You name it, I have probably got a notepad dedicated to it. I don't do well with surprises and I feel uncomfortable in, unpredictable social situations. I always have. I'm not really into networking. I don't really like that kind of vibe. I just don't like unpredictability. However, despite this need that I've got for familiarity and everything that feels safe for me, I've lived on the edge for 14 years now, just riding these unpredictable waves of self-employment day in, day out, never quite knowing if I'm going to make my mortgage payment, or be able to put food on the table. And it's weird because it's like a whole different personality when it comes to work for me. Like, you might be able to relate, some months you're living on a wing and a prayer, hoping that you're going to have enough money to survive, say to put food on the table, whatever. And then other months, I can be jumping for joy because I've made like my whole month's wage in 2 days. It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it just reminds me of why I do what I do. And I think being self-employed just requires a certain type of personality. Now, whether that's all of you or just part of you, and for me, it's definitely just part of me. My main personality, like I say, is mispredictable, misorganised, play it safe kind of girl. I know what I like what I know. A planner, I'm a bit of a worrier. But then there's this other side of me that's a little bit wild. I don't like to be told what to do. I don't like to feel limited. I don't want to live my life on someone else's terms. And I'm willing to push beyond my comfort zone so that I can achieve better things. And I think it's all these things that are a part of my makeup. I can't change them. And they are more my beliefs and my behaviour. It's what I believe, what I want from my life that drives my sort of need to take control. And I do think that these beliefs that I have, they can override the sensible side of me when it comes to work. They do drive me. They make me leave the safety of my other self and they just push me further to take risks. Because to be self-employed, there's no doubt about it. You have to have balls. You've got to have nerves of steel. It's not for the faint-hearted. And one thing that I do have in droves is determination to succeed. And I'll work hard. And I will take risks. And I will put myself out there. Because it's a prerequisite of being an entrepreneur. Now, I don't know about you. I've been doing this a long time, but I am still definitely not brave enough to go on Dragon's Den. I always think about this. I always watch the programme and think, God, I could do that, but then I think there's absolutely no way I could do it. Unless, of course, maybe I had an amazing invention or something, or, I was really good at maths because that bit when they ask you about your financial projections, maths never been my strong point. It always terrifies me. So I think I'd probably fall at that hurdle anyway. It's probably best I don't go on Dragon's Den. But I'm not scared of being self-employed and all the risks that come with it. The financial ones, the emotional ones, the legal ones, whatever. That bit doesn't scare me, despite this genetic disposition that I've got to be misorganised and to want to know every possibility and every outcome of every situation in my own personal life. And I think it's because I'm actually more scared of living a life doing something that I don't love or I don't care about, being miserable and feeling like a caged bird and just always wondering, like, what if? And I think that's exactly what drives me to be fearless when it comes to running my own business. So maybe you can relate. maybe you're like me and you've got two sides to your personality, or maybe you're just like an all-out risk taker. I don't know. Whatever you are, if you're listening to this, then, and you're self-employed or even thinking about becoming self-employed, then you do have the risk taker inside of you. She might not be the most prevalent part of your personality like that she isn't for me, but she's in there, and it can be like a little voice that you just can't ignore. And I find that the older I get, mine's just getting louder and louder, perhaps just because you just don't care anymore what people think, and you're more willing to take chances. I don't know what it is, but let her out, because you never know what she'll be able to achieve if you don't. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about taking risks in business. I'm going to be looking at all the different kinds of risks that we might come across, that might be holding you back from getting started or taking the plunge, to start your own business or to grow it if you've already got one. And I don't just mean financial risks, which are probably the ones that are most associated with starting up a business. We're going to be looking at all kinds of other ones too. Risks to yourself, your ego, risks of the unknown and how it can make us feel, as well as more like practical risks, which we worry about when it comes to day-to-day running of our businesses. What if things go wrong with suppliers? We've got disruptions to services. I'm going to talk about these different kinds of risks that we might face as entrepreneurs, as well as ways that we can overcome the fear and learn to make informed decisions and balance the risk. So we're always moving forward, because we can get stuck so easily, can't we, because of fear. And we can just say, I'm not doing it. So hopefully this episode will help put some of your fears at ease, at the very least. Let's talk about it. Let's unpick some of these fears that I just mentioned that might be holding you back from truly committing to your business. Sometimes I think to myself, I talk to lots of women who are all in different positions, obviously. Some work full-time with just a part-time small business. Some people are all in like me. But those people that want to be all in, that want to quit their day job, they often say to me that one thing that frightens them, and it's one of the biggest things for most people, is obviously the financial risk associated with starting out a business, or even growing it if you're doing it part-time. Because it's scary, isn't it? Leaving a full-time job with a full-time wage, which is what I had, and going it alone. Because at the beginning, inevitably, you're probably not going to make much money. And it's a process of growing, and that can be scary. So let's talk about these risks, these financial risks associated with business. I'm not talking multi-million pound investments here, because I'm guessing that most of the people listening to this, you're not at that level yet in your business. And you're probably just actually happy, like me, to make a decent living doing something that you love. Maybe bringing in 20, 30k a year, if that, whatever. You're probably more likely to be afraid of the smaller things, the little things like buying equipment for your business or spending money on materials to create stuff that you don't even know are going to sell. That's a risk, isn't it? Or putting £50 on a Facebook ad that you've got no idea whether or not it'll work. So these are the kinds of financial risks and this sort of level that I'm talking about here. They're not massive, they're not life-changing, but they are a risk all the same. As we're putting our money on something that it might work, it might not. We don't know. And we won't know until we try. It could be the risk of costs associated with setting up or running a creative business, like getting a website, marketing materials like business cards, banners, flyers, whatever you need to get yourself out there. Financial risk, it's the main one that causes stress and anxiety in entrepreneurs, especially if money is tight and you're lacking in self-confidence. Because money is very precious at the moment. It's a difficult time that we're living in. It's a difficult time anyway, but to be a small business, trying to keep afloat and get people to spend money that they probably don't have, it's a hard task. If you've been in this boat for a while, or you've just started out, whatever, you will know it's hard getting people to part with their money at the moment. A couple of weeks ago, I was driving along a road near where we live, And I didn't see it. I just went over this pothole and it was massive. Like, it was too late by the time, I got near it and I went over it. And my tyre just exploded. It was an absolute nightmare. Anyway, I managed to get the car in a safe spot. I had my daughter in the back. I had to call a mechanic out. And it was £140 that it ended up costing me, which, I didn't have that money really. I was actually planning the following week to try out a Google ad, which I'd put, £100 to £150 to the side because I knew that was probably what it was going to cost me. And I was so annoyed that this tyre incident had just swallowed that money up. They were the funds that I was planning to use on that. And I was that annoyed that I just did it anyway. And I ended up taking out this Google ad and I put it on a credit card. And I don't know what possessed me, because in my personal life, I'd never just stick £150 on a credit card for anything unless it was an absolute necessity. But work just seems to be a different story for me. I don't know, I just don't mind taking that risk with work. And I think it's a reflection of self-belief, and a bit of calculated risk taking, because that's what it's all about. You've got to balance your risks so you don't feel overwhelmed or scared by them. And I knew that, okay, tyre incident aside, £150, it wasn't life-changing money. I could make that back relatively easily. Plus, I knew that I could stop and start the ad as well as the budget got spent, which you can do on Google Ads. So if it got to the point where I'd spent £50 on the ad and I'd got no sales, then I could pause it, take a breath, reevaluate. So it wasn't something that was, hanging over me and, oh God, this money's going to be coming out my account soon. I just paused the ad. So I was in control of it. So for you, there might be a particular financial risk that you're afraid to take. So maybe it's like the monthly cost of having your own website, even just investing in some materials to get started, to launch a new range. Or perhaps you want some business support, but you're afraid of committing. I mean, if you're anything like me, I find it hard just spending a tenner on myself. I'm walking around with holes in my winter boots because I just can't bear to part with £30, £40 on a pair of boots. And I think, oh God, no, I need to put that on the food shop or get my daughter her shoes first. I always come last, as a lot of mothers do. And we do that as women, don't we? We find it really hard to spend money on ourselves. And we'll talk shortly about the ways that you can overcome these fears about finances, especially when you're first starting out and it's all a bit scary and uncertain, because there are things that you can do to manage the financial risks that you're afraid of, and you can still move your business forward. Because the truth is, if you do absolutely nothing, you're always going to stay stuck in the same place that you're in. So we have to push past that. We have to push past these fears and move to the next step to see what's waiting for us, because we never know. Now, the second risk that I want to talk about today when it comes to starting or growing a business, it's more of a personal one, and one that can hold us back a lot. And I'm talking about the risk to our ego. And that's because no one likes to fail. We do not like the thought of failing. It's a big risk. It's hard when you first start out because you don't know how you or your business or your work or your idea, your service, whatever it is you're offering, you don't know how it's going to be received. It's still hard even when you're established, because you've always got to introduce new ideas and new products and offerings so that you stay on top of the game, and you've always got work coming in, and you don't know if people will respond well to them, to these new ideas. And we often feel a fear of failure and rejection, which is a difficult pill to swallow. Because even when people challenge you, because they do, not everyone is there supporting you. They like to put their 2 pennies worth in, don't they? I mean, for example, excuse me, when I launched Her Handmade Hustle, I posted in some Facebook groups for entrepreneurs, just to let women know about the support that I could offer them, obviously the business advice side of things, helping them get up and running, social media help, all the different things, and I posted in this group. Anyway, a lot of people actually liked the post, they appreciated the information, and they joined my Facebook group. You might be one of those that's listening to this right now. Thank you if you did. However, there's always one out there gunning for you, wanting to rain on your parade, try and drag you down, basically just be a bit of an idiot. So I had this situation. This man piped up with a comment on the thread. He was asking why I'm only offering my services to women. Why am I discriminating against men and people who identify as non-binary? And I remember reading it. I was actually out with my daughter at the time in some kids' museum, and she was running around playing. And my phone pinged, and it popped up, and I thought, "Oh, I've got a reply on my Facebook post on this group." I was really excited to read it, and I remember my stomach just dropping when I read this comment from this man who was challenging me and like made me feel like I was discriminating against people. Oh, and it really ruined my day. And I just remember thinking, like, reading it and going, "For God's sake, really?" Like, I felt like, was I doing something wrong having coaching services that are aimed at women? But, then I thought about it and I thought, hang on a minute, I'm doing nothing wrong. I'm choosing to work with a group of people who I feel that I can help the most because I identify with them all and all the issues that they face because I've been in their shoes and I'm still in their shoes. And it wasn't that I was discriminating or I am discriminating against everybody else, everyone that's not female, or I hate men. It's just a totally different ball game when you're working with men, pardon the pun, but it is. I know as a professional that I need to be able to relate to the people that I work with and them to me as well, so that we get the best working relationship that we can and I can do what I set out to do for them, which is help make them money doing something that they love, turn their passion into profit. They've got a talent, they're creative. I want to help them harness that and make money from it. Now, of course, if a man approaches me, or someone who identifies as non-binary, I'm not going to say no. In fact, I've got a male client at the moment, so it's not about that. I'm just being honest by outlining who I feel I can relate to the most, being a woman in business myself, and dealing with all the kind of societal issues that we face as women, childcare, juggling home, responsibilities, you name it. So I did end up answering him. And I didn't justify anything. I literally just said to him, thanks for your comment. Basically what I've just said here, that, obviously I identify more with female entrepreneurs because that's what I am, what I do. And I kind of left it at that. And I forgot about it. And I carried on my day and we actually had a lovely day in the museum. And then I went home. Because I thought I'm not going to let it knock my confidence. In my first 2 weeks of launching Her Handmade Hustle, I thought I'm not going to let some keyboard warrior come and bring me down. But, nobody likes confrontation or rejection of ideas or something that's, come from your head, your soul. Your ideas are out there now and they're open to attack, aren't they? And we worry what people are going to think of them, of our prices. Or if they start thinking like, oh, who is she to think she can do this? Start a business, whatever. Or who are we not to do it? And quite frankly, they can keep their opinions to themselves. Because we have to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from this potential risk to our ego. Because if we don't, we're not going to do anything at all, or we're not going to commit fully to it in case we experience any of the above. So, like, say maybe you post on social media once a week because you don't want to annoy people. I've done that before, where I've just been like, once a week, post. And I think, well, what's it got to do with them? If they don't want to see it, then they can unfollow me. I actually had someone unsubscribe from my newsletter the other day, and I was okay with it. It was a bit of a shock when she asked me to remove her from the mailing list, and I took it a little bit personally. And I thought, I very rarely email more than once a week, once a fortnight. But I just accepted it and I said, that's fine, I'm not for everybody. Maybe she signed up and it wasn't what she expected. But I wasn't going to let it stop me. So, if you're thinking maybe you don't want to launch a new range because you're afraid that someone's going to make a comment, or even worse, you'll get no orders and then be publicly humiliated. Well, it could happen, unlikely. But I remember launching a new product for Vintage Tree, my stationery business, and not one person ordered it. I'd spent weeks and weeks developing it, but it just didn't hit the spot. And it hurt my ego. But I think the trick is not wasting any more precious time on something that's not working. Just move on. And don't take it personal because it wasn't right this time. It doesn't mean that you can't try it again in the future. I can't remember if I ever did with this other product or I just got rid of it. I can't remember. But brush it off as best as you can and just don't let it upset you, because you have to get your armour on when you're self-employed. Even if you imagine like actually putting it on in the morning, just imagine it. I saw a counsellor once. She was helping me cope with my work and a few issues while my mum was ill. And she told me in the mornings to imagine putting on a cloak every day, like this impenetrable cloak that no one could get through. Like a uniform, really, that I had to put on before I even started work. Because sometimes I'd open my emails and people might be questioning things or asking me where their items were, and I just felt like I couldn't cope with anything other than surviving during that time, like mentally. So I put this cloak on in the morning, and it did work to some degree. It did help me. And I often think of this now, even when I'm having a wobbly day, I get my cloak on and nothing can get through it. So again, we're going to look at some ways that we can practice overcoming this fear shortly. So you've got some tools in your emotional toolbox ready to help you manage, this risk that you may face to your ego. So we'll go into that shortly. But the third type of risk that we often encounter as entrepreneurs is risk of the unknown. Probably the most common one as well, because it is so uncertain. Self-employment is so uncertain. People often assume that most entrepreneurs are like wild, adrenaline-seeking, risk-taking individuals who like thrive on living on the edge, hate conformity, often go rogue. Might be a little bit true for some of us, or a lot of us, I don't know. I remember when I was about maybe 4 or 5, I ran away across the road to my neighbour's house, my elderly neighbour's house. I said to my mum, I hate living here, I'm running away. And I packed my little suitcase and I went rogue and I ran over the road and I went to Alice's house and she took me in, and then she picked up the phone. She rang my mum and said, Joanne's here, can you come and get her? And then mum came and got me. But that was probably the most daring thing I did at such a young age, running away. And it was over something stupid from what I can remember. But, what many of us really actually were quite the opposite of what people expect us to be. As I said at the beginning, I'm far from a risk taker. I hate the unknown. So why the hell do we throw ourselves on this roller coaster of a ride that is self-employment? It's got so many uncertain twists and turns. You can't predict it. I mean, this risk of uncertainty can sometimes just seem too scary or too much that we just don't take it. We stick to what's familiar, whatever that is for you. Maybe you're stuck in a 9-to-5 job that you're not happy with. Maybe you're continuing your role as a mother and a homemaker because you don't want to upset the apple cart. You worry about the effects of your decisions are going to have on everybody else. But the fact is, it's not our fault, actually. Like, biologically, it is not our fault because we aren't programmed to deal with uncertainty. In our brains, they're wired to always choose the familiar path and perform behaviours that we've always done. It's the easier option. And it's what we're conditioned to do. It's what we're used to. And therefore, it makes it much harder for us to change. And especially as we get older as well, in order to make changes in our thoughts and behaviours, we've really got to reprogram our brains into our new ways of thinking and acting so that they become the norm for us and they're not unfamiliar anymore. So therefore, we're more likely to do them. And when we don't feel as scared of the unknown, we are more likely to take that leap. So if you're really struggling with managing this risk of the unknown and this feeling of uncertainty isn't sitting well with you, try and start by just thinking about how you want your life to look. Obviously in a realistic way, of course. I'm not talking about, this time tomorrow I want to be on the beach in the Bahamas with a cocktail in my hand. Yes, that's exactly what I want. That's not going to happen tomorrow. I've got a lot on this week. However, maybe you'd love to have your own website, or you dream of working a 3-day week around your kids, Whatever it is, try and think about it first and get your brain more familiar with the idea, because it actually will help you take the next step, and it will reduce some of that like automated default behavior and thoughts that your brain is programmed to do. And that's what's holding you back from getting started or moving forward. That's exactly what I did with Vintage Twee when I started my stationery business. I was thinking about what I didn't want, first of all, which was to go and work back in a job that I had when I was 18, in a hospital, which I did enjoy, but I enjoyed as an 18-year-old. And I thought, no, I want to see my life a different way. And I envisaged what I wanted, and that was working for myself with my own hours. And I believe that's what really helped me get started, this real desire and ability to see what I wanted out of my life and how I wanted to live it on my terms. So the last risk that I wanted to mention before giving you some like actual useful ways of sort of overcoming these fears is one that it is a very valid risk, and it does exist, and it's one that's often out of our control, and it's called operational risks. They are the risks that we say we can't control when things go wrong in the day-to-day running of your business. So it could be anything. It could be problems with your suppliers. Maybe they discontinue a certain material because you've been, using it on a particular product, and then all of a sudden it's gone and it's panic because you've sold so many, you need to make them. Or it could be a disruption to services that you rely on to keep your business going, like Royal Mail delivery services, that bloody Royal Mail fiasco. Don't start me off on that. When they went on strike, I still have nightmares about it now. It completely destroyed me, made me nearly quit my business. These operational risks are particularly scary because they're totally out of our control, and they can be sprung upon us, which makes us have to think on our feet quickly, think outside the box and handle a difficult situation. And for me, I know that they've always been the biggest headache. They are my bugbear. I'm not afraid of them, but I just get really inconvenienced and fed up when something happens. It's like I've got about 5 different guillotines that I use to cut my stationery, because they keep discontinuing certain parts that I often need to replace. So then the whole thing's just rendered like completely useless. So I have to keep sourcing new guillotines. I've got like a stack of them in my office. They're like half the parts are missing, but if I could get the part, they would work. Security breaches, they're scary. Like my sister's in her business. If you listen to that podcast episode last week, when she and her partner were victims of identity fraud. It's frightening. It's things you can't control, and they interrupt the daily running of your business. They are harder to navigate, 100%, but they shouldn't put you off, because you do find ways around them, and there are things that you can do to be prepared to handle them as well, should they crop up. So with all that in mind, let's talk about what we can do to overcome these fears of taking risks, so that we feel more confident, more able to move forward, make progress, balance the risk at a level that we're comfortable with. So let's start with financial risks. How can we make sure we're comfortable in investing in our business, especially when money is tight and you might not feel 100% confident? So first, I would definitely say start small. Don't dive in head first with costly investments. It's one of the biggest mistakes that startups make, going too big too soon. I remember a cafe where I live, it opened up and we went in for a brew to try it out, and was talking to the manager. He started going on about how he bought this ice cream machine. I think he said it cost, I think it's about £7,000, because he wanted to be able to offer, an all singing, all dancing ice creams to the customers. And the cafe was empty when we went in for a start. But firstly, he opened in the winter, so nobody actually wanted ice cream during that time. So it just sat there doing nothing. And secondly, the cafe just didn't work. It had no customers. No one was really going in. And it ended up closing after 6 months. So it's just an example of going all out too much too soon. Yes, we all want the shiny new objects. We all want the lovely equipment and the shelves stacked with beautiful ribbons and, every kind of wrapping paper. It's the dream, having a studio that looks like that. Mine doesn't even look like that. Half the shelves are empty at the moment because I don't want to replenish stuff that I don't need. Not at these times. So stay small. You have to test the waters. Find out what people want and what they're actually buying from you, and then scale up gradually. Alan Sugar always says something that I like on The Apprentice. He says, smell what sells and then do more of it. You need to get your confidence up and you see some positive results before going all out. So let's just say you've made a new product or you want to trial a new product and you need to buy some materials to make it. Don't buy all your materials up front in bulk. Sample the idea first. So spend a little more, maybe just go to Hobbycraft or a local store or Amazon, whatever. Just order what you can in small amounts and then try the product out and see what happens. And this way you can sleep at night knowing that you minimize your losses if it doesn't work. I never buy everything, even now, for a product that I've never made before, unless I've sold a few and I see like an upward trend in my sales for it. Then I think, okay, yeah, people are buying it, they like it, it's worth me going the next level and buying, more materials in. So don't go in too fast, too soon. Educate yourself. Don't shy away from your finances and the cost of things to run your business. Track your finances because it's so easy to ignore them and not keep track. But you need to, even if you're not earning loads, even if you're not earning enough to meet the threshold to, register with the HMRC. Maybe it's only like a few quid a month, whatever. Just log it all anyway, because that way, your limits. Obviously, if you do end up making more money, you'll need it for tax purposes. But it helps to know what you're selling and what's going in and what's going out. If you can, have a backup plan. I know not everybody can. In an ideal world, it's lovely to have a float. I always said I'd like to have £1,000 all the time in a particular account that is just there for, whenever I need it for the business and stuff. And unfortunately, it's dipped into as and when it's needed. It's not always there. I haven't always got a solid backup plan, in all honesty, because some months it's just not possible. But if you can have some extra money put away to accommodate any unexpected expenses or challenges, it will help you. Obviously, unexpected expenses come along all the time in your personal life, like my most recent one being the exploded tyre. And also, I just got a really unjust parking fine. I was 2 minutes over the grace period. It's this private little car park near where my dad lives. And I pulled in to grab my daughter, a little bit of cheap tax. I'd been to a hospital appointment. What, to take her something for being so good while I was gone, She was at my dad's. So what meant to cost like a couple of quid ended up being like £65. The most expensive tub of slime I've ever bought. Really annoyed me. But that's life and it happens. You can also get some professional advice to help you navigate it all. Shifting your mindset to the value that these kind of investments can create for your business. I am the worst for thinking that I can do everything all on my own and figure it all out for myself, just to save time and money. But actually, some things I can't do on my own because I don't know how to, or I haven't got the time to learn. Time is so precious, isn't it? We don't have a lot of it at the moment. Oh no, I don't. You may be different, but time does run away with you. And sometimes it's easier just to seek some help. Financial advisors, they're a great one. Accountants, business mentors give you valuable insights because they know their stuff and have probably been in your shoes, much like me, which is why I wanted to be a business advisor to other women in the first place, because, there's people out there that need help and guidance to make things happen faster. And these kinds of investments are rarely a waste of money because they take the load off you and you don't have to keep going around in circles trying to figure out how to do absolutely everything. Because again, if you're anything like me, I'll start on something and then I get distracted and think, oh, well, I need to do that first, all business related, but then I end up actually achieving nothing. So I have to really focus. But some things can be outsourced. And I think you need to focus on the rewards and benefits of sometimes passing the torch to professionals. Now, how can we manage the risk to our ego? That awful fear of rejection. How do we overcome this? Beating the imposter syndrome. I had a terrible case of imposter syndrome yesterday. I was discovered a podcast by a well-known lady who's offering business advice as well. Obviously, she's a lot more established than me, and she has some really high-profile guests on her podcast. And I kept thinking, oh God, who am I doing this? What have I got to offer to people? But then as I listened to it, I thought, you know what? Mine is very different, because this lady talks to people who own multi-million-pound companies. I don't. And I think that there's a lot of women out there that would hopefully relate more to my episodes than other people's, because, we're not all in that boat, are we, where we're earning 7 figures. And some of us don't want to be. So I realised that what I'm doing is different. And I had to sort of really stop myself from comparing. And I managed it, and I just thought, no. So I turned it off, and I just plodded on doing what I'm doing. And we have to try and overcome it, because it's a hard one to beat. The risks to our ego is difficult, because it's got to come from within you. It's got to come from inside you to beat this one. And you can't pay someone for this service. Well, you can if you can afford counselling. So what can we do? So first of all, we have to reframe rejection. Don't see it as a personal failure. It's normal. Not everyone is going to be your cheerleader and love what you do. And you can ignore the negative, unhelpful feedback, like that man who questioned my decision, to primarily work with women. Well, what's it got to do with him anyway? And then instead, take valid, helpful feedback and use it to change up what's not working and make it better, improve on it. Another thing you can also do is practice resilience. And in fact, you actually must practice resilience, because in this day and age, selling online, in a world where everyone wants everything yesterday and they've got massively unrealistic expectations, you need a backbone. You need to get some coping mechanisms in place ready to help you manage any damage to your ego. Surrounding yourself with supportive friends and colleagues in the same position. That's a really good one for me. I often go out for coffees with friends and we chat about business related things. Obviously, working alone can be quite a lonely thing. You have worries. But surrounding yourself with people who are in the same boat does help. Seek advice, like I said, from mentors, and learn to brush stuff off. It's taken me a while to get resilient, I'm not going to lie, and I've still got a way to go, because it's not in my nature to be hard-faced about stuff. I'm not like that. But it's definitely got easier as I've got older. When I started the business at 27, I was very much people pleaser. But now at 40, I have changed. I've changed since becoming a mother as well. My priorities have shifted. So, life events, I think, do change you as a person and help you build this resilience. But you also have to be realistic. You're not going to get everything right all at once. You're unlikely to release a brand new product, no matter how excited you are, it's not going to sell out within the first hour of it being launched. It's just not. People, unfortunately, aren't waiting at their laptops to purchase our things before it sells out, okay? We're not Beyonce selling tickets to a show. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that we can't celebrate our small wins, because we're small businesses. Your first customer, your second customer, a fabulous review, a recommendation, a profit, an increase on sales on last month. All of these small wins and steps lead to bigger things. I started Etsy with one sale, like most people, one sale. And now I'm well over 20,000 sales on Etsy, and not on the high street alone, without my own website ones. Am I a millionaire? No, of course not. Sometimes, I can't even afford a budget 4-day caravan holiday this year at Butlins. It's been a bad one though, one thing or another. But I know that's the nature of self-employment. It's often feast or famine. And that leads me on to managing the risk of the next thing that we chatted about, which is the risk of the unknown. And this is a scary one, isn't it? I know that I feel terrified of the risk of the unknown sometimes. So how can we reduce this uncertainty? Just so we don't feel too scared to even try to follow our dreams and make them happen. Well, we have to come to terms with the fact that we can't ever know what's coming next. And this goes for everything in life, doesn't it? We don't know what's around the corner. So what, we're never going to try anything different? No, we're going to take a chance on our dreams. We're going to live our life. There's no way that I'm going out not doing this. I want to let go of the control and just accept that some months you may not make anything. And some months you may make double or triple what you expected. I know with my best month, it must have been a few years ago now, it's definitely before COVID, I remember turning over like nearly £6,000. Now for a small stationery business, creating items from hand that were between £5 and £10 on average, it's a lot of money. And I worked my fingers to the bone that month, I remember. And then my worst month, I think I only made a tenner a week. 40 quid for the month. Even pay for anything. It's a true story, it happened. But I keep going because as uncertain as it all is, I know that it can be so worth it. And you can also reduce this risk of the unknown by getting clear, make a business plan, set out your goals, test your ideas with a small audience, do some market research. Knowledge is power, and you can reduce and navigate uncertainties by being prepared. I should have been in the brownies, shouldn't I? But I wasn't. Again, didn't like group situations, I didn't like these unpredictable social situations. I was never a brownie. So finally, how do we manage these operational risks? The ones that can totally screw up the day. You're running your business one minute and the next something goes wrong that's out of your control. So supply issues, third-party errors, services that you work with, it's about getting ahead of them. So try and having backup plans in place if someone lets you down. My mum always used to say that you can only ever rely on yourself, Joanne. And I think she was right. So for me now, when I make a new product, I make sure that I'm not relying exclusively on one supplier for the materials. Obviously, I'll have my sort of favourite supplier or the place that I will go to by default, but then I make sure that I can get that material from at least 2 different places. And I usually check like Amazon or eBay for like quick supplies in case, mine fails. So diversify your suppliers and your partners. Work with multiple vendors. Don't rely on anyone but yourself. Make sure you've got adequate business insurance to cover you in case you damage your equipment. Or there's business interruption. I had to use mine actually when my daughter was 2 at the time, and she spilled apple juice all over my laptop. Now my laptop is my office, isn't it? I haven't got a shop. That is my online storefront, so I do everything on my laptop. I remember her spilling this cup of apple juice because it dried sticky. I couldn't use it anymore. The keys just completely failed. The keyboard was ruined. But I ended up claiming that on insurance for a small excess, so I did get a new one. I think now as well you can add cybersecurity insurance to protect you from if you're a victim of cybercrime, like my sister was with her business with the identity fraud. So do your research and get these things in place to help you manage these operational risks and feel confident that you can handle any issues that crop up. So to summarise, we can't let our fears of these risks that we've talked about today affect our decision to start a business or take it to the next level. No way. Everything is a risk in life. To run your own business, you have to be a bit of a risk taker. And you obviously are if you're listening to this. Otherwise, you wouldn't have given up, 45 minutes nearly, listening to me if you weren't serious about your business or achieving your goals and making it happen, or you didn't have ambition. You've obviously got that. You've got self-belief. You've got guts. And Jesus, for those of us that have survived motherhood, running a business is a walk in the park. I haven't got a bloody clue what I'm doing half the time with my daughter, but she's happy as Larry. It's working and I'm learning on the job. And I never know what's coming next. 1 minute, we can be in the middle of Lidl, what they call it, middle Lidl. And half an hour later, this is a true story, we were in A&E because she'd had this allergic reaction to a snack bar that I bought her in there and gave her on the way home. And I experienced one of the most terrifying nights of my life as a mother. And it's just an example of never knowing what's coming next. I thought we were doing bath time and bed, and then I'd get the evening to sit and watch telly, you know. Put a bit of Netflix on, didn't happen, was in A&E till 2 a.m. So we never know what's coming next. It's about balancing risk and taking small, sometimes bigger steps in order to grow. Otherwise, we're going to stand still forever. And I don't want that. And I don't think that you want that too. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that it helped you look at things in a different way. It maybe gave you a dose of confidence to deal with any insecurities that you're feeling. Or it motivated you to take the plunge if you've been thinking about it and do something to move forward. Remember, I'm here if you need any more help or some hand holding with anything that you're struggling with. It's what I do. I genuinely care. You know, I've got a whole host of experience doing the things that you'll be navigating now. If you're at the beginning of your journey, I've been there. I can offer you business advice. I have a one-off masterclass, so I'll teach you some things on what it is. Let's say you've got a thing that's bugging you the most. We can do a masterclass on it. I can help you achieve it. I can help you get your results. You know, I've got coaching programs, some additional services I'm going to be introducing soon. There's some content writing for websites and social media. I will update you on that when I have some more information. It's all on my website. I'll put the link in the show notes so you can sign up to my newsletter if you want to be the first to hear about it all. And think about it as an investment, because I know when I work with women, I get results for them, and that's what I want for you. I want you to see results, and that's what I focus on. Getting you sales, whatever it is you want to do, getting you featured in a magazine, getting you found on Google, known locally, like tangible things, whatever it is you want to achieve. I can help with it. Think about it. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day or evening, and I will catch you next time with another episode soon. Okay, bye for now.